So last time we started a new topic that is audit evidence. We want to look at audit evidence as its definition. We went further to look at characteristics of audit evidence, that is appropriateness and sufficiency. Then we went on to look at financial statement assertion. We want to look at the three types of financial statement assertions. Then we started with assertion based on transactions and events. We went on to look at assertion based on account balances. And we went on to look at the last one, assertion based on presentation and disclosure. All of that were discussed in the last class, okay? Now we are moving forward now. See continuation of chapter 6, right? We are looking at methods or procedures for obtaining audit evidence, okay? So what this means is that for you to obtain audit evidence, right, you can use any of these methods, any of these procedures. The more you combine these procedures or methods, the more appropriate, the more sufficient your audit evidence becomes. Okay, so we are going to look at them in no particular order. We start with the first one, inspection. Okay, inspection is an audit procedure based on the examination of records or documents, okay, whether internal or external, okay. It will also be held in various forms, that is in paper, electronics, or similar, or on physical assessment of an asset. So what we are saying here is that for inspection, right, is an audit procedure, right, that specify or that helps to examine, okay, you can use it to examine records or documents, okay, whether internal or external documents. Also, inspection can also be utilized when you want to physically assess your assets, okay? Like for instance, one of the reasons why they carry out asset verification is to be able to ascertain, okay, and be assured that that asset exists and they are what? They are in good shape, they are in good condition, okay? One of the reasons why they carry out asset verification in the first place. Then we have the second one, observation. Observation is another method, it's another procedure, okay, that consists of looking at a process or procedure being performed by others so that evidence about the actual performance is obtained, okay. Now, what this means is that as the auditor, if you want to use observation, that means you have to rely on the process owners, because they are the ones that are going to utilize, they are not going to carry out this process or procedures, okay, while you, in the process of them performing this process or procedure, you will obtain your evidence as per what you have observed. Okay, so it is an indirect way, but it's also one of the ways you can use to what, to obtain audit evidence. Okay, so that is the second one. Then we have the third one, which is external confirmation procedure. Now, this is one of the procedures that specifically are obtained, okay, from external parties, especially experts, okay, experts or professionals from other fields, okay. And remember, I think we have looked at who is an expert. I said that an expert is someone that has competence in other fields outside accounting and audit. So any information you obtain from this expert can be regarded as what? External confirmation procedure, because they are the ones that are going to provide the information which we now which the auditor will now rely on, okay, to write his own audit report, okay. That is what we mean, okay. So one of the reasons why you use external confirmation is the fact that the auditor does not have competence in some areas, okay. The one that the auditor has competence in that relates to processes, for instance, the auditor cannot certain tree is still in good condition or not. The dog cannot ascertain. You're not able to detect mere looking at, okay. So you need to be able to ascertain that, oh, this inventory is bad. For instance, right? That's all right. You might not be able to detect, okay. You might not be able to detect whether
Sir, we have
the
not been
inventory.
hearing you all the while. The network went off.
From where? Where did you
Yes,
where did you hear me from? Where did you stop
it's
hearing
just
me?
2
You were
minutes. I
talking
just
about external
I'm still there. And I've
external.
not left external confirmation now. I'm still explaining external confirmation. I've not left
Okay,
external
sir.
confirmation. I've not left it. I'm still explaining external confirmation and see where the material is. I hope you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can see that I'm still on external confirmation. I saw it that it went off. So that's why you see me, I'm still recapping on external confirmation. I was saying that the editor does not have competence in some areas, okay? That is why he relies on these professionals, okay, that are experts in that field to provide the information or report or certificate that he is now going to base his opinion or audit report upon because he knows that he does not have the competence in that area. For instance, the auditor cannot, it's very difficult for the auditor to ascertain the value of a building. Let's say you are talking about a company that is into real estate. It's very difficult for the auditor to say that, okay, now looking at this building, stage of completion. Oh, this building is worth X amount of money. The auditor is not trained to know the value. It's only surveyors or valuers or architects that can tell you the value of a building at various stages. Why did I mention architects? If you go back to those days when you are at the rudimentary stage, your foundation stage, when you are writing accounting, there is an account that you did that is called contract account. Okay, you call it contract account. So contract account, you have one of the methods used in that account to be called what architect certificate percentage architect percentage completion method. That's why I made use of architect. Okay, so these are the people that are certified, right, to be able to tell you what is the value of a building at various stage, whether the building is at foundation stage, whether the building is at lintel stage, whether the building is at completion stage, but left with what electrical. Okay, it's only these people that can give the auditor that information. So they will provide the report, certificate, or information, right, which the auditor will now rely on to form his own audit opinion. I hope we are together. So that is where external confirmation procedures comes in because the auditor does not have that expertise. That is going to rely on some other people to be able to uh, consent or be able to give an opinion on how the financial statement has been prepared. Okay. Now, another audit procedure that can use to obtain audit evidence is recalculation. Okay. Now, recalculation entails checking the arithmetical accuracy of documents, okay, or records that have been presented, okay, to the auditor. So the auditor will check the financial statement. Sometimes they extract financial statement from ERP, that is Enterprise Resource Planning, or from accounting package. So they export it, okay, from this accounting software and ERP. So when they export it, what happens is that sometimes there will be need for a recheck or a recalculation to be done by the auditor to see that none of those rows or columns in the Excel of that financial statement that has been downloaded is what is not adding up. So he needs to check everything again. Check because sometimes when you export, right? When you export, right, you will the formula will not be there when you export to Excel. You can try it. Try and export from accounting package or export from ERP to Excel. The formula that you use, how you compute it in your ERP and Excel will not be inherited, okay, alongside when you are downloading it in Excel. So you have to reconfirm and check again whether there are no mistakes. And that is what the auditor will do when it talks about what recalculation. I hope you are getting it right. The next one, another method the can use is what we call reperformance. Remember, in the first one, we said that observation, the auditor will observe as the business owner try to carry out a process or procedure while the auditor obtains
we can't hear you.
information, okay, or necessary information. The reverse is the case in with the one that is from where can't you where, I said from where can't you hear me? Time is going.
So just continue. It was breaking for a while, but it's back now.
It's not me that's called, it's the network. If and it's not showing on my end that there's a network glitch. So that's why if you cannot hear me, tell me where what you heard last from me so that I can recap from that point. So that you just say you can't hear me. You have to tell me where did you stop or where did you hear me last so that I can recap from there so that we can move on. You understand? These are technical glitches that is outside my control. But you can tell me it can happen anytime. Just tell me. This is why I didn't hear this one. Like the last person said, I was on a external confirmation procedure. I was able to start from there. But not that you say you can't hear me. What you can't hear me means that maybe you just joined, okay? Or maybe you joined when I've already said something. Because I see that the number is going up now. That's why I'm asking, where can't you hear me? And nobody responded. So please, if you cannot hear me, it's not an issue. Just tell me where you stopped hearing from so that I can pick it up from there. So that there will not be a break in communication. Even if you cannot hear me, this class is recorded, okay? But at the same time, when you can't hear me, this is where you stopped, or this is where I heard last. I will now take it from there and continue. Okay, so apologies for that. So we continue, right? We are talking about reperformance, and I said that in the case I'm trying to compare it with observation, it's like the opposite of observation. In observation, the editor we watch as a process is being performed. And from that process that is being performed by the process owners or the client, he draws his own what evidence or he draws his own what conclusion about the process. He will not do it, he will just watch. An example of observation is when they do stock count. Accelerators, when they go for stock count, they are to serve as observers. So while the client account department, store department, um, internal auditor, they are involved in the counting, right? The internal auditor will just observe and see how it is being done, whether they are missing some of the SKUs. SKU means inventory, right? So that they are missing some rows or some aspect of the inventory that can call their attention to it so that they can ensure they have an accurate stock taking. That's what happens under observation. Okay. Now, in the case of performance, the auditor will not be at the forefront. The auditor will be at the forefront. Okay, to perform, right? The auditor will be at the forefront to do what? To perform or to execute the process and check why is it the one executing the process? Is the one executing the process because he wants to check whether adequate controls are already built into the process or the procedure. Okay, by you checking by yourself, be able to ascertain whether the system or the internal computer system is what is effective and efficient in terms of control that have been built along those processes. Because every system is supposed to have control measures, okay, that have been built in so that it will check and balance, okay, transactions or processes that occur during, all right? So that's what we mean by the performance, all right? The next one is analytical review procedures. Analytical review procedures is another audit procedure that um, involves evaluating financial and non-financial data. Okay, looking at the relationship between possible relationship between financial and non-financial data. So when you talk about possible relationship that I mentioned now, you talk about possible relationship I mentioned, what I did is it here. Okay, possible relationship. What it means that similar, okay, similar or related, okay, similar relationship or related relationship between financial and non-financial data. Example of analytical review procedures are ratio analysis, right? You have heard of ratio analysis before, or you have heard of trend analysis before. these are examples of these are types of analytical review procedures. Okay, so what that implies is that when you look at the ratio analysis, if you understand how to interpret ratio analysis, you ask me that ratio analysis is a key performance indicator. Okay, it's key performance, it's one of the tools for performance measurement. Once you understand, because there are benchmarks for measuring those ratios. Okay, once for organization falls short of those benchmarks, it means that the organization is not performing. The network went off again. I was explaining analytical review procedures, and I said that analytical procedures is an audit procedure, right? Or is a method of obtaining audit evidence as a result of analyzing possible relationship between financial and non-financial data. Okay. And I said that types of analytical review procedures include ratio analysis or trend analysis. Okay. And I was trying to explain that if you can interpret ratio analysis, right, it's an avenue, right, that can be used to evaluate or to assess uh, company's performance. Okay, you can use it to assess what company's performance. So why is it possible? The reason why it's possible is that there are some standard benchmark, okay, for these ratios. So what you just need to do, you just need to benchmark your own, compare what you have in your organization, right? Benchmark it with what you have, the industry standard, okay, and you'll be able to understand. So to put percentage to this, let's take an instance of acid test ratio. And I say that acid test ratio is one of those ratio, is a type of ratio analysis, right? Where you are going to sum up all your current assets, less inventory, then divide whatever you get by current liabilities. That is your acid test ratio. Now, the industry standard in some sectors of the economy, but if you compute your own for your organization and you are getting ratio 2 to 6, or ratio 1 to 7, or ratio 4 to 5, it means that something is fundamentally wrong with your performance. Okay, so you need to check within and try to resolve it because before the thing gets out of control, right? That was what I was explaining before the network glitch occurred again, right? So that is a type. Another example you can also use so as to buttress this is to look at your trend analysis. Trend analysis shows a pattern, okay? Pattern of what? Uh, Expenses, revenue, purchases, okay, cost. I want to use trend analysis to do over a period of time, minimum of 3 years. Okay, so you look at, so you want to see the company has 3 years information, right? You look at your sales last year, I mean 2 years ago, it was let's say 100 million. Last year, you had 120 million. So for this year, we're expecting to have what? Above 120 million. What I'm going to have above 120 million, you are still at 90 million. And this is already more than half of the year. Okay. So what that implies is that there's something that needs to be checked. Otherwise, it will be really difficult for the organization to meet up with even 100 million at the end of 2025. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm trying to put perspective some of this so that you don't be as this thing is just abstract. It's just explaining. Be able to understand it. And it's from this information that I've just explained now that the editor will draw his own what opinion on and say that, oh, this company, if you continue on this trend, the company will lose its market share. And when the company loses market share, what happens? That means the sales will drop. And once sales drop, what next happen? Every other thing will start happening. There will be suppliers that will not be paid on time. Even salaries of staff will not be paid on time because there's no money. Cash flow becomes a big issue. And when cash flow becomes a big issue, the product that the company is producing will no longer be available. because they do not have enough money to do what? To procure the raw materials. Okay? They don't have enough money to do what? To procure the raw materials. They don't have enough money to pay the product company, what can events that can happen before the company eventually what dies. So any company that you see that dies, don't just die like that. There are certain things that start, and if those things are not checked or they are not put in the right position or right shape, you continue to what degenerate. And once the engine get to a stage, the company will do what? Will fold up. All right. That is why we say that it's one of those procedures for obtaining what audit evidence. Okay, I hope we are getting it. If there's any question, please do let me know. All right. The next one I want to look at is inquiry. Now, inquiry is also a type of audit procedure that is used essentially during performance of an audit in addition to other procedures. So what this one does is that you use it to get what? To seek clarification. You use it to do what? To seek clarification or to seek knowledge of how certain things are done within the organization. You say if you don't ask, you don't learn, and you cannot audit what you don't understand. Okay. So by you asking, it shows that you want to learn, you want to acquire knowledge, you want to understand how things are done, okay, in the organization because you might have might have similar organization, okay, but the processes are what? The processes differ, right? So you need to know what makes this organization own process to be unique from others, okay, even though they produce similar what? Similar products. I hope we are getting it. So these are the um, methods of obtaining audit evidence. Okay, these are the procedures for obtaining audit evidence. There are 7 of them. All right. So, so the next thing we want to look at is what information can be used as audit evidence. Now, this is a vital question. Okay. So, as an auditor, in the course of gathering your evidence, you gather as much as you can see, as much as you can obtain. Okay, you cannot discriminate, oh, which information should I take, which one should I not take at the point of what? Obtaining or gathering the audit evidence. You gather everything. Now, the issue now is after you have gathered all this information or all this audit evidence, right? Or the information you're going to use as audit evidence, you will need to do what we call evaluation and review. You are going to filter it. Now, we don't call it filter in audit, we call it what? Evaluation and review. So when you perform evaluation and review, you'll be able to know which of this information is relevant to the audit engagement. Because it's not all the information you are going to gather that will be relevant to the audit engagement. So you are going to separate the ones that are relevant, okay, the ones that are going to make the auditor to be able to have to write his audit report, okay, in such a way that we will have achieved the client's audit objective. You understand what I'm saying? So you will need to filter it, okay, and by doing this you will be able to know, okay, these are the things I need for this audit report. And this one, maybe for subsequent engagement or for other types of engagement, I'll be utilizing this information. Okay. Now, and in doing this, right, it leads us to how you can tell what information is relevant, okay, or what information is appropriate, or what information is sufficient. But essentially, you need to be able to tell us what information is relevant. How do you assess information that is relevant and that is reliable? How do you assess it? Knowing fully well that reliability and relevance are two qualities of what? Appropriateness. Are we together? Reliability and relevance are two qualities of what? Audit appropriateness. Okay? Are we together? So, in order for you to be able to know which information will be relevant and reliable, okay, for this audit engagement, you have to measure them or assess them on this generalization. This is it here. On this generalization, okay? On this generalization. So what are the generalization? These are ways to test or to assess if an audit evidence is appropriate, okay? So first of all, which is under reliability. So to test reliability of audit evidence, the audit evidence obtained from independent source outside the entity tends to be more reliable than information obtained from the client. Now, there's a caveat here. If you are going to get information from independent sources outside the entity, it must be from knowledgeable independent sources. That is, independent sources that knows or that have an understanding of your processes as a client, procedures as a client, the organization, operating activities. That person understands. Not just anybody that's independent. Okay. Now, he that is independent and is knowledgeable about the client business does not hold the obligation, does not hold the client any obligation. He will give you all the information that you have sought. They are very careful, very meticulous when they are giving information out to the auditor. Because in their own mind, they don't know what the auditor will use that information for, whether it's going to use it against them or not. So sometimes when the auditor requests for information from the client's management, sometimes they feel reluctant to give. Now, when they give, they don't give the information. When they give, can you hear me? When they give, they don't give the appropriate information. I need orange. And we don't have orange. What we have is apple. But I said I wanted orange. But apple and orange, they are round shaped fruits now. So apple is round, orange is also round. So one can substitute the other. That is how the management will put it to you. If you do not have what we call what? Professional skepticism. You don't have a probing mind to ask questions. Okay, that's why I said that as an auditor, you must have an attitude of what? Professional skepticism. I hope we are together. So that is what you need to know. So when you are getting information from knowledgeable, independent uh, sources, okay, outside the entity, it tends to be more reliable than the one you get from within the world, within the client business. Number two, another way you can also use to assess the reliability of audit evidence is that audit evidence obtained by the auditor himself or herself that will be more obtained from client or by inference. So what does that mean? You are the one, I started with something I said, you cannot audit what you don't understand. Okay. So if you have understood the client's processes, if you have gained understanding of the client businesses, right, nothing stops you from knowing what information to seek the business operates. All right. So that's why I said that this is more reliable than the information the auditor obtained himself or herself than the one that is furnished by the what? By the client, or the one he gets by what? By inference. What do you mean by inference? Inference is mostly used in sciences, and when we talk about inference, we're talking about what? The use of assumption. And mind you, assumption is the lowest level of knowledge. When I'm talking to someone now and I ask the person something, and the person say that I think maybe, maybe that person, to me, I'll say that this person is not sure. If you are not sure, why I don't need to waste my time with you. But once I ask you something, they are giving me back to back. It means that yes, you have an understanding of what I'm saying. But when I ask you, say maybe, I think, that means you are not certain, you are not sure. And that's why we say that in everywhere, right? Assumption is the lowest level of knowledge. So the information that the editor has obtained by himself or herself tends to be more reliable than any other information furnished by the client or the. So I was explaining audit evidence that is obtained in documentary form to be more reliable than the one obtained orally. And I said that oral information or oral audit evidence can be what? Can be denied. What this person said cannot repudiate it, cannot deny it. Okay? The auditor always expects or believes that you use what? Audit evidence obtained in oral in original form, right, is more reliable than audit evidence obtained in photocopies or facsimile. Okay, what do we mean by that? What we mean by this is that what we mean by this is that for information that is obtained in original copy, is usually one copy. Okay, it's usually what? One copy. But photocopies can be what? Can be duplicated. And because it can be duplicated and manipulated, information in photocopies can be duplicated and manipulated. The auditor tends to prefer original document as against what? Photocopies. Okay, as against what? Photocopies. There have been instances of fraud that have been committed by using what? Photocopies. So the end auditor always prefer original copies because he knows that the original copy cannot be duplicated. Okay, you only have one original copy. But once you duplicate it and start having photocopies, then those photocopies can be what? Can be manipulated or can be adulterated to achieve different objectives. Okay, so all of these are ways the auditor check, okay, or to assess the reliability of audit evidence. Any question? Any question? Any comments? Any observation? Are we together, please?
Yeah, together, sir.
Okay, thank you. To be sure that you can hear me. Okay, let's continue. So you have under assessed the reliability of audit evidence. In fact, there was a time that this question was asked. What are the generalizations of audit evidence? When they ask what are generalizations of audit evidence, what we just explained, those four generalizations are what you need to want to write. Or they ask you, how can you assess the reliability of audit evidence? All these four that we just explained are what you are expected to watch to put down. Okay, so we move on. The next one we want to look at is method method of selecting items for testing. What are the methods of selecting items for testing in case of what? Audit evidence. How do you determine, oh, which is the item we are going to use? This item we have chosen for audit evidence. How do you select? There are three ways, there are three methods you can use. The first one is called selecting all items, 100% evaluation. Selecting all items. What do we mean by selecting all items? Now, you can select all items if the quantity of those items or those goods are not what? Are not much. Okay? Or when they are what? When they are valuable. What do I say? What I said is this. If you have what you want to obtain information from, okay, and the test you want to perform on these items or on these goods, they are not, the items are not plenty, okay? They are handful. They are just something that's very, very limited, okay? And they have high value. You can only get all of them 100%. Example, you want to audit a company that is into what? Jewelries or precious stones, okay? Precious stones such as a diamond, ruby, palladium, and the likes, right? Now, these things I just mentioned now, they don't come cheap, okay? They are very, very expensive and they are very, very valuable. So their quantities are not much. So you can easily count them. Compared to say you want to count 100% of what? Nails. I'm talking of nails that they use to on concrete or they use on wood. Or you want to count both and not. How long will it take you? What is the value of a bag of both and not? It can't be as expensive as the bag as a handful or an ounce of precious stone like diamond or gold or metal like gold. It cannot be the same. So because these ones are of higher value, the auditor can afford to do what? to select all of them because they are not plenty. All right, that is one method of selecting items for testing. Second method the auditor can also use is what we call selecting specific items. This is what I just explained. Okay, population is made up of small number of large value items. You can see there's no required choice is statement. All what I just explained is here. Okay, I'm not just explaining in vacuum, it's already there. Okay. The second method you can use is known as what? Selecting specific items. Selecting what? Specific items. What do you mean by selecting specific items? Now you have a population or of items that you want to select for testing, which we normally call in audit population. Now, in that population, right, you have two main types of items in that population. You have some items that have high value or that have premium value, and you have some that are just ordinary. They are not as premium. They are just ordinary items. Now, when you are selecting items for testing, one of the methods you can use when selecting items for testing is to deploy what we call what? Pareto analysis. What do you mean by Pareto analysis? You take a more percentage of the valuable item, and you take a less percentage of the less valuable item, then you aggregate it together to arrive at what? 100%. Okay? So an instance I just mentioned now. So you are auditing a company that's into the manufacturing of what? Of drinks. Let's say carbonated drinks. Nigerian bottling company. Okay. Now, by research, right, more people tend to consume Coca-Cola more than other products of Nigerian bottling company limited. You can go and research. People tend to be more addictive. That's the word. Tend to be more addictive to Coca-Cola than any other product that the company manufactures. Okay? Other product that the company manufactures. So you have Coca-Cola, you have Fanta, you have Sprite. Okay? Now, what we are saying here is that because Coca-Cola is what? Is fast moving. We are taking a sample for testing, you are going to take more from Coca-Cola because it's what? It is fast moving. It can be what? 80% of Coca-Cola items, okay? And take 20% of Fanta and Sprite to make up what? 100%. So you can make a case for it and say that, oh, you have also been able to analyze and see that, oh, Coca-Cola is the cash cow, okay, of other products in the organization. Cash cow means the one that generates the highest volume of what? Or returns, okay? It can be in terms of profit, it can be in terms of revenue, it can be in terms of turnover, okay? So we call it cash cow. So that is the method you are going to use. You can use this method when you have divergent or you have diverse products or goods that you want to select for items for testing. But when they are not plenty, they are homogeneous and they are small and they are of higher value, right? You utilize the 100% examination. I hope you are getting it. The third method you can use to select items for testing is called audit sampling. Why is audit sampling? Audit sampling is what we normally use during audit. What does it mean? Audit sampling has to do with what? Taking a percentage from the population. Okay? Taking a percentage. Now, it's not in the case of Pareto analysis, we are using two percentages, 80-20. Audit sampling, it's just one. You are just taking, you can take like 10% or 20%. Okay? You take one, not two. And what you have taken, the sample you have taken, the outcome of that sample will now be used to generalize or to conclude on the entire population. Okay? The sample that you have collected, the results of those samples you have collected for testing will now be used to do what? To conclude on the entire population. So let me give an instance. The auditor went to an organization and is auditing the organization, right? And said that, oh, I want to see you look at the financial statement and he saw in the notes to the account staff cost and saw that the staff cost is high. And he said that he would like to know what is the breakdown, what is the breakdown of the staff cost. Staff cost is not necessarily salary. Anything that has to do with staff emolument is staff cost. Leave allowance is there. If there is any transport they give to staff, is there. If there's any feeding allowance they give to staff, is there. Okay? If there's anything like 13th month bonus, it's also there. All right? So all of these are what makes up what your staff cost. So he said, I want to see the composition of the staff cost. And he gave it to him. So in the population, he saw that we have over 1,000 staff. Okay? Out of 1,000 staff, right? He saw that larger percentage, let's say the larger percentage of the population or of the staff strength, they are what? They are male. Let's say male takes what? 80%. Or let me not use 80%. Male takes what? 60%. Okay? Because the organization, you have what we call what? Equal opportunity rights. Okay? So because they are employed a man, doesn't mean that women will be what? Will be disqualified or will not be allowed to work. So we have two sex in the organization. You have the male and you have the female. Okay? So the male makes up what? 65%. Why the female makes up 35%? So out of 65%, you take some samples for testing. We want to determine what is the average salary of the staff in the organization. What is the average salary of staff in the organization? So you now tailor it down to a particular department, engineering. Engineering, you only have what? Only male, female staff. So from there, you know that whatever I get from engineering, because engineering has the largest number of what of staff as well. Any number I get from engineering, I will use the results from engineering to generalize or to conclude on the entire population. So that means that whatever I get from engineering as the average salary, what I'm going to use as the benchmark as average salary for all the staff that works in the organization. Why? Because engineering department has the largest number of staff. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we mean by audit sampling. So you take a sample from the engineering department, you pick them. So who is the highest paid here? You look at it. Who is the lowest paid here? You look at it. So you now take a sample. You take a sample from there. Okay. And then you now say that okay, what I concluded is that average salary for people in the engineering department is what? Is 70,000. Okay, because most of them are what entry level staff. So what that means is that you now conclude that in the entire population, the average salary is what? Is 70. Because you have used the what you have obtained from the engineering department to conclude or to generalize on the entire population. I hope I'm making sense. I hope it's clear, right? You get the analogy I'm trying to put out? Because if I don't put all of this there, it will be very, very difficult for comprehension. That's why I'm using examples, try to put it in something you can relate with. Okay? Are we all together? Can you hear me? So that is those are the methods of obtaining or selecting items for testing in audit evidence. Okay? Those are the things we just explained now. Then we explain more on sampling. Okay? Now, sampling, like I said, I've already said it, right? I said is a what? Is a method of selecting items to be tested, which cover less than the total population, that provides a chance for all items to be what? To be selected, so that the auditor will have a reasonable basis to draw conclusion about the whole population. That's what I just explained now, okay? I just need to show you that it's already is in the material, okay? Now, how do you document procedures and audit testing? How do you document procedures and audit evidence? Okay, how do you do that? Now, what we are saying here is that In the course of performing the audit evidence, right, you need to look at the documentation. Okay, we still want to talk about documentation. Okay, so you need to look at the information you are trying to process. So you need to have some dialogue or inquiry with the process owners. Okay, when you obtain those inquiry with process owners, sometimes you need to do what? You need to write them down. Okay, when you write the information you have gotten from the process owner, you have written it down. The next thing for you to do is to transfer it to your what? To your audit working paper. Okay, you transfer it to your what? To your audit working paper, which at the end of the day you are going to use to prepare your audit report and give or express your audit opinion about the what? About the current businesses or financial statements. Okay, so the auditor should only select items, okay, that are relevant to the what? To the audit evidence, okay? Because in the course of performing audit evidence, you also need to be wary, okay, or be careful of risk that audit risk that it can give an inappropriate audit opinion, okay? The audit risk that they can give what? An inappropriate audit opinion is always there. So you need to ensure that he selects items intentionally that he knows that are relevant and what are reliable. All right. So that is what the auditor will do. Okay. We're able to ascertain that he has documented the procedures and that of the audit evidence. Okay. That's what we do at that point in time. So there are different methods of sampling. Okay, we are looking at all these sampling. There are different methods of sampling. Okay, IS 530 requires auditor to select a sample in such a way that each item in population has an equal chance of being selected. So what we are saying in ISA 530, which is talking about what audit sampling, right, is that auditor should select items such that every item in that population have an equal chance of being what? Selected. Okay, so we have some types of sampling. Okay, we have random sampling. Random sampling, in case of random sampling, all items in the population have equal chance of selection. This is typically achieved by the use of random numbers to select items for testing. What this one means is an example of this is when you go for a raffle draw. Okay, you go for a raffle draw. Every item in that raffle draw has equal chance of being selected. It's not that you are lucky. Everybody that have filled the form and have submitted the form that are already contained in the raffle draw, right, has equal chance of being selected. So that's an example of what? Random sampling, okay? We have systematic sampling. Now, with systematic sampling, what happens is that a random starting point is chosen from the population, and then items are selected with a standard gap between them. What do we mean by that? So you start with, let's say you want to look at items looking at what intervals, okay, having intervals, standard intervals. So you start with one. The next item you're going to pick, you're going to pick number two. You go and pick number five. Okay, after you pick number five, you don't pick number six, you go and pick what? Number 10. That is at five intervals, right? You are selecting the next item for what? For testing. So when you have testing registration that is standard, that is the intervals are standard, that is the same across all the points where you are going to pick a number. We are talking about what? Systematic sampling. Okay, that's an example. So we said at every five, you select one. After every five, you select one. So what that implies is that you are going to select at intervals of what? Five each. Okay, I hope that is clear. Then have the third one is called what? Haphazard sampling. Haphazard sampling means something that is done without any basis. Okay, something that is done with what? Arbitrary basis. Something that is done without following any particular guideline. It's anyhow. The word I normally use is when I see haphazard sampling, I use the word anyhow. That's anything goes. There's no specific guideline on how to go about the sampling. Just do what you want to do. Okay, that's what we mean by haphazard sampling. Okay, so but the issue here is that this one has a higher risk of what bias, because if you select anything and let's say is you selected it, sometimes those things you have selected might be considered to be what to be biased or to be subjective, because there is no system in place, there is no procedure, no process in place as to how you selected that item using haphazard sampling. Okay, so any questions so far? Any question, comment, observation? So we move to the next one. We look at what constitutes a misstatement or deviation. Okay, identify 30 requirements for the auditor to consider the purpose of the audit procedure means that the auditor needs a clear understanding of what constitutes a misstatement or a deviation. All right. Now, tolerable misstatement or rate of deviation is a monetary amount set by auditor in order to address the risk that the total of individually immaterial misstatements may cause the financial statement to be what? Be materially misstated. So what they are saying here is that as an auditor, there's always a risk that the auditor will give an inappropriate audit opinion. And what will lead to the auditor giving an inappropriate audit opinion? Because of what? Because of the risk of what? Material misstatement. Risk of material misstatement. We make the auditor to give an inappropriate audit opinion. Okay? So what we are saying here is that as an auditor, you have what we call what? Tolerable misstatement. That is within control. Within control. That is, it is not, it is considerable. Okay? It is allowed. That's the word you can use. Either you say it's considerable or you say it's allowed. Okay? So what we are saying here is that it should ensure that those, even though they are allowed, but it should ensure that the aggregate of this immaterial misstatement will not end up becoming a material misstatement. So we have figures like, they are taking figures like, I'm trying to look for an example that we can use so that we understand what I'm saying. So you are saying that, oh, the auditor should pick any figure that is, let's say, like 5,500, okay? So, or 5,550. So 5,550, you can see 50 is there, okay? Or you see 5,550 kobo. Let me use that one. 5,550 kobo. You see it's there. You see another one, 10,010 kobo. You see another one, uh, 2,005 kobo. You see all those kobo that you are seeing there. Now, if care is not taken, when the auditor aggregates all those kobo, if care is not taken, it's going to become something that is what? That is material for the auditor to consider whether he should overlook it or he should perform additional audit procedure. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? So what we are saying here is that you can see that these things are negligible, right? But you need to be careful that when these negligible amounts are aggregated or are summed up, it doesn't become something that is what? That is material or something that is fundamentally huge, okay? That cannot be overlooked again by the auditor. All right? That's how we call it what? Misstatement or what? Deviation. Okay? So the auditor, the smaller tolerable misstatement or the rate of deviation, the greater the required sample size. I'm just trying to explain what I've just said, okay? Now, when designing a sample, the auditor is required by ISO 530 to perform appropriate audit procedure on each selected items. Okay. Now, if the audit procedure is not applicable to the selected item, the auditor must perform the procedure on a replacement item, provided the check has been was legitimately and properly cancelled. Okay. So what we are saying here is that they are just giving us guideline as to what I've explained, saying that the auditor needs to be what? Needs to be extremely careful, especially for all those small, small items that he considered them as what immaterial. Because once this is aggregated, okay, can become something that we need the management, the client management to decide on. Okay, so that's what we mean. So the auditor is also required to investigate the nature and cause of any misstatement, deviation, and evaluate their possible effect. That's what I just explained. Okay. Now, if the auditor considers the misstatement or deviation to be an anomaly, he must obtain a high degree of certainty about this and perform additional procedure to obtain sufficient evidence that the misstatement or deviation does not affect the rest of the population. Is similar to what I've just said. I said that when the auditor discovers that the misstatement has become material, you might need to do what? Perform additional audit procedure. Okay. So at the end of the day, the investigation of the nature and cause of the misstatement or deviation we need the auditor to conclude that the problem lies within one time period, type of transaction, or location. So by the time the auditor narrow down or zero down by using other audit procedure, you need to pinpoint what is the actual, where is this deviation, where is this misstatement emanating from. You need to zero in on the area where this what necessitated the deviation or misstatement. Okay, I hope we are together. Then we'll go to the next one, audit documentation. Audit documentation is also similar to what we call audit working paper, and the relevant standard is ISA 230, audit documentation, ISA 230. Okay, so at the end of the day, the auditor will need to what? Compile his what? Audit evidence. Okay, he will compile the audit evidence in a format or in a form, right? Which from there is going to what? Present his what? And prepare his audit report. We call it audit documentation. Now, what do you need to know about audit documentation? Now, what you need to realize audit documentation is that audit documentation is compiled or should be compiled. That it should be compiled not later than 60 days after the completion of the audit engagement. Please take this down. Audit working paper should be compiled not less than 60 days after the completion of the audit. So by day 60, you must have compiled your audit working paper. That is what the standard says. Okay. Now, when you're looking at audit documentation, these are the things that constitute audit documentation. You have your audit procedures, the audit procedure to be performed. Okay. You have audit evidence that have been obtained, and you have the conclusions that have been what? That have been arrived at. So your audit documentation gives a record of the audit procedures that have been performed. That's number one. The audit evidence that has been obtained. And number three, the conclusions that have been what? That have been arrived at. Okay. Now, your documentation must also be what? Sufficient and appropriate, because it's from this the auditor will prepare his what? Audit report. All right. It's from this the auditor will do what? Will prepare the what? Audit report. So evidence that the audit was planned and performed in accordance with ISC and applicable standard and regulatory requirements. So anytime you are looking at audit documentation, you must ensure that the information which we call the audit evidence is in line with what? ISA, with all the ISAs and applicable legal and regulatory requirements. Okay, that is what we mean by that. Any comments, observation? So this, what you have here, right, is explaining the ISA 230. That's all documentation. Okay, it's telling us on what needs to be done, who prepares or who gathers the documentation. The documentation is usually gathered by the experienced auditor, okay? And whoever is gathering that information must not have connection with the previous audit that has been done to ensure what independence, all right? To ensure what independence. Also, the auditor that's performing the audit, right, should also ensure that decisions or discussions on significant matters with management and others on a timely basis. That is, anything is stumbled on while performing the audit, right? He needs to inform the management as they occur, okay? So at the end of the day, you will be able to present those issues to them and be able to do what? They need to agree that yes, these things actually have been discussed much earlier, okay? So at the end of the day, the auditor should ensure that they complete the assembly of the final the auditor should complete the assembling of the final audit file on a timely basis after the audit report is issued. Okay. After the assembling of the final audit file has been complete, the auditor should not delete or discard audit documentation before its retention period. What we mean is that audit documentation, they have what we call what retention period. Most of them cannot be destroyed. You just need to keep archiving them, or you convert them or store them into what? Into the clouds. You can't delete them because we have seen audits before. We have seen some audits that they go way back in time. I worked in an organization before where they said that they needed information from over 20 years ago. And the auditor went to the archives and extracted that information for us to see. So that's why retention period for audit documentation, especially for audit documentation, is usually what forever. You have to keep it forever till eternity. Okay. So the auditor also, if you find it necessary to modify or add to what has been already done, right? What he needs to do is that he must ensure that he perform additional audit procedure. You must ensure that what he performs additional audit procedure, okay, and understand the rationale or the reasons why there is need for an update or where there is need for an additional information to be what? To be included. All right. So all of these are what the auditor will do. Now let's look at the importance of audit working paper. What does this start? What is the significance of audit working paper? Number one, the paper can be used for quality control purposes. That is to say that, oh, in your audit firm, you have audit documentation that has been what? To show that the audit engagement has been what? Has been completed as a system of quality management within the audit firm. Okay? Audit documentation is one of the audit documentation is one of the requirements for a system of quality management within the audit firm. You must have documentation. Number two, it can be used as an evidence in the court of law that the audit engagement was done. Number three, it can serve as a reference point, okay, especially for new audit staff that joins. So when you have a new audit staff that has not had any experience on audit before, external audit before, you can show them a sample of that what audit documentation, which will make him to have an understanding of what we mean by what audit documentation. All right. So these are some of the importance of audit working paper. Okay. Now, what you also need to realize is, yes, somebody is asking a question. Okay, Chi, I'm with you. Ask your question, please.
So the number one importance of the audit working paper, I didn't get it properly.
I didn't get you.
The number one importance of audit working paper, I did not get what you explained. I only got the number 2 and 3.
What I said is that audit working paper is significant because it serves as a requirement for a system of quality management in an audit firm. It serves as what? A requirement for a system of quality management in an audit firm. So in an audit firm, you don't talk about internal control. What they talk about is what? System of quality management. Okay? They talk about what? System of what? Quality management. So there's no internal control in audit firm. What you find is what? System of quality management. And as part of quality management, documentation is one of the requirements. So if you say you have a system of quality management in your audit firm and there's no documentation, that means something is missing. That's what I said as the first one. I hope it's clear now.
Yes, thank you, sir.
All right. Any other question? Any other question? The other thing again, as an auditor, as an external auditor, you need to be very mindful when you are gathering your audit evidence because it is not all information, it's not all the evidence that be required during the ritual, right? The client business. What information is useful for what purpose? Okay, that you on how you obtain your work audit evidence. But when you are doing it as a novice or not with experience or exposure, it's going to be very difficult, okay, to be able to avoid obtaining unnecessary uh, working papers. So what we are saying in essence is that your exposure, your experience, long way. Your understanding of the client business goes a long way in assisting you when you are gathering your what audit evidence. So that you'll be gathering audit evidence that is useful, okay, or that has useful purpose, or that supports what audit report at the end of the day. Okay, so that is what we mean by avoiding unnecessary papers. Okay, we go to the next one. Content of audit working paper. What we are saying here is that in a typical audit working paper, these are some of the information that you find in your typical audit working paper. Number one, if you find the name of the client, ABC Limited audit working paper, you see the name of the client. Number two, the period covered by the audit. This audit is for January, ABC is for ABC Limited, 1st of January 2024 to 31st December 2024. You see the subject matter. So this audit evidence is for the financial statement, statement of profit or loss, statement of financial position, statement of cash flow, statement of changes in equity, and notes to the account. It will be clearly stated. And if you are making reference to what you're going to do audit, you are not going to, when you go for an audit, right, you go with the previous audit working paper. Maybe they have some item in the previous year audit working paper that are yet to be closed out. So you start from there. So if we have some items in the previous year audit working paper that has not been closed out and you are doing a new one, that could be the reason or the rationale behind having what? File reference. Because there is a way audit firms usually reference their what? Their documents for easy traceability. Okay? There is a way you reference your document for easy what? Easy traceability. Okay? Then another thing that is also common, you can commonly found in audit working paper is the initial signature of the member of staff, the person that prepared the audit working paper. Another we also see is the name signature of the person that reviews the audit working paper. Is also there. Okay, so these are some of the information that you have in the audit working paper. Okay, any question, any comment, any observation? So we go to the next one. Types of audit working paper. There are two main types of audit working paper. You have the permanent audit file and you have the current audit file. There are two main types of audit working paper. You have a permanent audit file, or we call it the permanent file, and you have the current audit file, which we call what? The current file. What's the difference between the two? Now, as the name implies, in the case of permanent audit file, it records information that is likely to be significant for every annual audit of that client. That is, you can use the information under permanent audit file for more than one audit because they don't change. Because of what? Because they do not change. Right? Now, we mean by what are those information that you think will not change over time in an organization? One of them is what we call the legal constitution of the company. The legal constitution of the company, another name for it is what? MEMAT. Another name for it is what? MEMAT. MEMAT. You can tell me what MEMAT means. Class, what's the meaning of MEMAT? MEMAT. It's also regarded as the constitution of the company. What does it mean? What constitutes MEMAT? Anybody? Anybody? Can you hear me? Hello, class. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
What's the meaning of MEMAT? Or let us see. What do you understand by the legal constitution of the company? Because this information do not change or does not change. What do you mean by MEMAT? MEMAT means memorandum of association and articles of association. That's the meaning of MEMAT. It's also can also be regarded as what? The legal constitution of the organization because it does not change. The only time it changes is when there's a change in the object of the organization, what the organization intends to achieve. That's the only time that the article and the organization will change. Okay? It's always, you can use it for more than one audit. Number two, other important documents such as loan agreement also really change. Okay? So you have loan agreements, right, that are more that are for previous years. Okay? They cannot change because it is there. What is left is for you to be able to work obligation because and also because they are of the previous year. Okay. Another thing that can also change also that will not change over time is the summary of and ownership of the business, particularly the history development of the business. It cannot change. We have a new president in Nigeria now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Okay, because he's the president of Nigeria, he cannot change his history, where it's coming from. You cannot say that, oh, I'm the president of Nigeria, but I was born in Abuja. You cannot say that now. Because at the time he was born, there was no Abuja. Okay? So the history cannot be changed. So hence it will constitute permanent audit file. A record of accounting system and procedure used by the client. So your accounting statement, standard operating procedure really also change. Okay? Standard operating procedures for accounting departments suddenly change. They don't change unless there is a change in the accounting process. All right. The copies of previous financial statements cannot change because they are already in the past. You only focus on what? Focus on the future. Okay? Nothing on the past. Okay? Then the current audit file, which is normally called the current file, as name implies, is what? Is a file that contains information of relevance to the current year's audit. Okay? That means that it's based on information on the current year's audit only. So examples of what you are going to see in that file is the what? Is the final financial status report for the year under review. Okay. You're going to find a summary of audit adjustments, including those not included in the final reported figures. Okay. At the end of the day, the auditor will make some adjustments in financial statements. Those audit adjustments are already contained in the current audit file. Okay. Another one I also find there is the audit plan memorandum. Audit plan memorandum is an information that has to do with how the auditor is going to arrive, what are the audit decisions that the auditor has taken as regards this engagement. It's also an annual documentation. It will be contained in the current audit file. Okay. Audit control material such as time budget, review points, point of consideration by the management partner, by the engagement partner. What do you mean by audit control material? Any document that originates from the audit firm is seen as what? Audit control material. Example, when you see the audit checklist, that checklist is from the audit firm. It's peculiar to the audit firm, so it's an audit control material. Okay, it's an audit what control material. Time budget. How long are we going to stay or spend in a client's premises or environment or office? As you feel it, that document also is an audit control material. Okay. Then audit letters. What do you mean by audit letters? Audit letters are made up of three things: letter of engagement, management letter, and written representation. I take it again. Audit letters comprise letter of engagement, management letter, and written representation. Okay. Then also you also find the audit plan. Audit plan is also included in the audit in the current audit file. Why? Because every year you need to draw up your audit plan. Okay. Then again, details of items selected for testing. So what the details of items selected for testing, all those audit tests that they are performed, how do they arrive at their output or results? All of these are contained in the current audit file. Okay. Then lastly, we have the lead schedule. Lead schedule means all those accounting schedule, sales schedule, purchases schedule, expense schedule, provision schedule, all of those things, right? Those are what we mean by that. They also contain in the current audit file. Okay. This is what I said earlier. Can you see it? The solid documentation must be prepared after the audit report, but not exceeding 60 days. You see what I said? So that's why I said it. I said it because I might forget, okay? Because of explanation, I might forget. That's why I quickly said it earlier. But thank God, you can still see it here again, okay? So if there is a need for modification on the what audit documentation, these are the process or the procedures the editor needs to do. Number one, the editor need to know when and by whom the modifications were made. Okay, that's if discovered that there's a need for change or modification to be made on the audit documentation. Okay, you also want to know the reason for making them. Do you have an exceptional circumstance that arose? Okay, after the audit report, whether you want to change it. Okay, then as whether it has to perform new or additional audit procedure. Whether you're going to whether new additional procedures may be required, okay? Then which is new conclusion. They don't also want to do what? Which was new conclusion, okay? So all of these are the reasons why the auditor might want to modify his existing audit working paper. Ordinarily, like I said, a documentation must or should be compiled not less than 50 days, no more than 50 days after, not more than 60 days after the completion of the audit engagement. Okay. So the next one we are seeing here, papers prepared by client. What we are saying here, we mean that there are instances where the client can assist the auditor to prepare the audit working paper. And the only instance is if the auditor had pre-informed the client earlier that part of the audit working paper, you will assist me to prepare it. If that has not been discussed earlier, then it cannot assist the auditor to prepare the audit working paper. So upon completion of the preparation of the audit working paper, another staff will be assigned to review the working paper that is prepared by the client, whether it's in line with the audit firm's system of quality management, okay, as regards what working paper. Okay, are we together? Then the other audit staff will also review what. So the first person will review, and the second person will also review. That is the engagement partner will also review that that documentation is in line with their work, with what is available in their audit trail before audit working paper prepared by the client can become part of the audit documentation for the for the for the audit. Okay. So let's look at some of the characteristics of a good audit working paper. That is, when you take an audit working paper, what are some of the things that you uh, need to project to you? Okay, that is the element attributes of a good audit working paper. Number one, it must state a clear audit objective. Okay, that is in terms of an audit assertion. That is to ensure the completeness of trade creditors. You must have a defined audit objective. Number two, it will state fully the year and period that is being audited. Okay, it will state fully the year and the period that is being what that is being audited. It also state fully the extent of the test that has been performed and the result therefrom. All right. It's also it's also necessary that where he makes reference to previous audit working paper, he needs to also ensure that that is properly referenced. Okay. Then next, the audit working paper should clearly and obviously state the result of the test. I talked about that earlier. So just a split of that one. Okay. So our next one, because I'm looking at them, some of them are like mean the same. That's why I don't want to repeat them. Okay. So look at the next one. So the audit working paper should be signed by the person who prepares it, by the preparer, and also be signed by the person that reviews what has been done. Okay. You also be signed by the reviewer. Okay. You have the engagement control reviewer that's going to review all that has been done. Okay. Then what we are saying here is that how do you come about the term audit working paper? Prior to the advent of computer being used in audit, all these audit working paper are in real paper form. You see them in what? In real physical paper form. So you see one big file and you see all those small files in it. We call it audit working paper. But with the advent of IT that we are in now, all this audit working paper has been converted into what? Into folders and files. You see a folder of a client, you call it XYZ audit working paper. When you click on it, you're going to see some records there. You see some Excel record, you see some MS Word record. You might even see some presentation slide there also that relates to that particular client. So this is now being obtained from the what? From the system. Even the lead schedules, right? All those account schedules, you can also obtain them electronically now. They are no longer in paper form. Okay, you upload it from the you export it from the ERP or from the uh, accounting package. Okay. Any question? Any comment? So the next one to look at is what are the advantages of this computer software packages? Now that we are looking at where since the advent of this what do you call it now? The use of computer generated audit, what are the advantages to the audit firm? One, the audit working paper are now neater and easy to read because they are in standard format. Before now, when you are using paper, biro and paper, or pen and paper, sometimes there might be some mistakes, there might be some translation, but all of these has been released now with the advent of what? Computers, okay? Number two, there's a lower risk of error by the auditor in processing and adjustment. Why? Because it is system that is doing it. So system is more reliable than what? Than human sometimes, okay? Then the audit review process by senior manager or the audit partner can be carried out remotely. What that means is that I don't need to be with my engagement team when they are doing the audit. I might be anywhere and log on, ask them to log on to a virtual meeting where you can meet and discuss virtually. Okay, this is very possible as a result of what the computer generated. audit working paper. Then automatic processing of adjustment by the auditor using software. So software has made it easy. Okay, they have designed, they have programmed the software such that what you just do is just for you to input anything. They want to input what you want and click on what you want to achieve before you take your accordingly your design output will have what okay. Most of this audit working paper packages, okay, that you just tell the system this is what you want to achieve. You want to create financial statement, you have a trial balance, but you want to create financial, you just need to give it, upload it, and before you know it, the uh, the system, the computer software packages, right, for the audit firm, you do what? You prepare financial statement for the auditor, thereby saving more time, okay? Thereby doing what? Saving more time. So we look at the next one, ownership, custody, and confidentiality of audit working paper. What they're asking us here is that who owns and keep custody of the audit working paper? The simple answer is that the auditor or the audit firm is property, okay, to keep and own audit working paper. At no point should the client held on to the audit working paper. It is solely the audit and editor, the audit firm and editor's property. Okay, I hope that is clear. So that's what they are saying there. So with this, we are done with chapter 6 for tonight. Okay, we are done with chapter 6 for tonight. Any question? Someone is asking a question here. Okay, we are done already. We are done already. That's chapter 6. We are done with chapter 6. So the next one we are going to meet, we'll be looking at reporting. Okay, we'll be looking at reporting. So I'll be sending us questions for practice. Okay, so that you can get to know how to go about some of these um, some of these aspects when it comes out in your examination. Okay, thank you so much for your cooperation. Thank you for your time. Okay, do you have any question, comment, observation? Are there questions, comment, observation? In the absence of no question or observation, the class is hereby adjourned. Okay, till when next we meet.